Hey everyone, welcome to Talk of the Town. This is a podcast where we talk about all things media, creators, business, and more. My name is Tristin Chambers. I am the host of the podcast. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you for tuning into it. If you are coming back from our Ground Zero episode, that means even more to myself and everyone working on this podcast. Now, in this episode, what we're going to be talking about is all the outcry that's been happening with Warner Brothers Discovery over the last couple of days at the time of recording, and also what the future of the entertainment industry looks like and everything of the sorts. Now, before I get into that, if you guys want to support the podcast, it'd be really awesome if you would subscribe or follow for future episodes. And as well, towards the end of the podcast, I'll talk about how you can find us on social media and everything like that. Now, to give you guys an understanding of what's been happening with Warner Brothers Television and Warner Brothers Discovery, I need to give a little bit of context. As you guys know, back in April of this year, Warner Brothers, or Warner Media as it was collectively known, ended up merging with Discovery to create Warner Brothers Discovery. Ever since then, the CEO of Discovery, now Warner Brothers, David Zaslav, has been on a mission to cut $3 billion worth of costs from the overall company. This is sort of seen as a corporate finance move by a lot of people to essentially try to get Warner Brothers into somehow a better financial state than it has. However, that hasn't been going the best. And one of the ways in which a lot of companies tend to do this is by laying people off, cutting productions, and ultimately reorganizing companies. So, what happened earlier this week with Warner Brothers Television is essentially the news of three main things. One, it came in the form of layoffs. There were at least 80 people who were let go from the company, 40 positions on top of that that were vacant and that are no longer going to be filled, meaning 26% of Warner Brothers Television's workforce has been essentially cut off or let go. And this is a really sad thing to see for the entertainment industry. There are a lot of amazing, talented people in all forms of the television and entertainment industry that are left without a job as of this week. And I hope that those people do find a job that treats them with class, dignity, and gives them opportunities to really thrive and continue doing amazing, whether they were on the business side of things, the legal side of things, or the production and development side of things. The second thing that was announced was also, according to Variety, the fact that Warner Brothers TV was going to be shuttering its short form group called Stage 13. It was essentially created back in 2017 to make digital short form programming. And some of the shows that came out of Stage 13 were things like 2 Cents Horror Stories, which has been on the CW, and also shows on Netflix like Special and It's Bruno. Now, this isn't necessarily too much of a major thing. It was certainly a blow to a lot of people, but also keep in mind that Warner Brothers Television had already been supervising the development and programming on a lot of the Stage 13 projects since basically the pandemic. So all the shows that are currently existing are just going to be brought into the larger Warner Brothers Television studio as a whole. And this basically comes as short form programming is declining, and academies like the TV Academy merging several short form categories as content is shrinking in that area. So this does make sense from a business standpoint that looking at it, they were already basically sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and ultimately it is something that is kind of upsetting. But the major news that came out the last couple of days was that the very well-known Warner Brothers Television Workshop for writers and directors that had been around for over 40 years was essentially being shut down. And this was something that caught a lot of people by surprise because there are a lot of well-known names who had worked on projects and had come out of this pipeline. You're looking at writers who had been on shows like Luke Cage, Snowpiercer, The Walking Dead, Into the Badlands, the Wu-Tang American Saga, and so many other amazing projects out there in the industry. Now, there wasn't really an understanding as to why this was happening, but essentially it was something that really wasn't seen more of a corporate move in terms of things. And there's a lot of questions and answers that are still probably being figured out at the time. Now, I bring this up because immediately this caught a lot of condemnation, a lot of outcry, and a lot of people within the industry were certainly not happy by this decision. And this even caught flack from groups like the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild of America because of the fact that this is something that major television studios like Warner Brothers were mandated to essentially have. And what happened is that the Directors Guild of America spoke up essentially by saying that they were going to fight against Warner Brothers' decision to dismantle the directors program, and they ultimately even called out that they believed this would seek to roll back decades of advancement for women and directors of color because of programs like this basically not having a way anymore out there for diverse talent to receive opportunities in the directing and writing space. So keep in mind that programs like this were crucial and very important to helping people and everything. Now, ultimately, it's been announced by the time of recording this that Warner Brothers Discovery, basically has reinstated that because of the outcry, because of a lot of the condemnation from, again, groups like the Writers Guild and the Directors Guild because of this. And primarily the biggest reason why is because most people within Warner Brothers basically understood that if they were to keep these programs shut down, then essentially the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, and even the Television Guild of America could essentially put a freeze or a block on people working with Warner Brothers. And if you think about the fact that most people in Hollywood are part of these unions, that means that you essentially have a lot of directors, showrunners, writers' assistants, so forth and so forth, basically being told you're not allowed to work on Warner Brothers projects of any kind in the television space. This would have been a massive blow to Warner Brothers and went even more for than just the PR backlash that they've received. And I've had a lot of people ask me what the future would have looked like had these programs again stayed closed. You're not just looking at the people who are already working on projects being affected, but you're also looking at the fact that a lot of people, like women, people of color, other marginalized communities, and even people LGBTQ or so forth, would essentially have no way to really be able to break into the industry, meaning less voices, less ability to tell unique and different stories, and things of that nature. And ultimately, it is something that I'm glad to see that they're keeping around. I think the idea of it, moving from the TV division over to the corporate team is something that is a little bit of a unsettling thing, but I am interested in seeing how they essentially go about doing this and everything like that, right? They brought in someone named Karen Horn, who used to run pipeline programs both at NBC, Nickelodeon, and Disney. Ultimately, this is something important to keep in mind. Now, I want to hear from you guys on social media about your guys' thoughts. Do you guys think that this is a good move that Warner Brothers is reversing course on the diversity and inclusion programs that it had, the TV and writers programs, and ultimately, what do you guys think about the future of Warner Brothers Discovery right now? It's not looking too hot from all fronts, and it's looking like a very troubling time as well. And I'm going to definitely be keeping my eyes on this in the future and everything like that. Now, if you guys again did enjoy this podcast, it really would mean a lot if you guys do again subscribe to the podcast, you share it with your friends, both on social media and word of mouth. It really means a lot to again myself and everyone working on this podcast. And also, if you want to support the podcast on social media, you guys can find us on social media on both Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Talk of Town Pod. And essentially, we look forward to having you guys tune in to future episodes and things of that nature. But for now, my name is Tristan, and I will see all of you guys in the next episode.